You're separating it most. So I usually start on the left side, and I just cut that skin in between the thighs, and I set my knife down. And then I pull this back and bend it until that is visible. See that? And then on the bottom of the chicken, the back side of the chicken, there are these two little beautiful pieces of meat that are right here. Do you know what those are called? Oysters. The oysters. They're right here, and these, we call them the oyster because they're these. It's the most flavorful part of the chicken. It is intense in flavor, and it sits in this little bone that looks like an oyster shell. So that's why we call them the oyster. And the oyster, I want you to pull off with the thigh. So I just broke that back, right? And then I'm going to kind of turn this over, and I want that medallion that's right there. So I'm going to kind of come in here and get that out. This is the oyster, that tiny little piece. It's considered a delicacy when you go visit another chef's restaurant in France. When you dine there, you're being honored for coming to visit, so you're given something to be done with chicken and oysters. So now that I've separated that, I know exactly where to put my knife in between that joint, and then I run it through, and that comes right off. Again, if you're wrestling with it, you're in the wrong spot. Reposition yourself until you're right in between that joint. That's why I love these little knives, because they're like little razor blades. So again, same thing on the other side. I cut the skin, set my knife down, pop the joint out, and then I'm after that oyster on that. And it'll just peel right off. And then knowing exactly where that joint happens, I know exactly where to put my knife. Don't make it more than it is. It's very simple. You can see right here, look. You can see those little oyster shells right there and right there, where the oyster sits on the back side. And I want to keep them as part of the thigh. So here's one right here, and there's the other right there. So, next thing I want to do is I want to separate the thigh from the drumstick. The best way to kind of figure out where to cut is this line of fat that runs right here. Do you see that? There's another one that runs right there, right on top of the joint. So you make a little incision right here, and then kind of feel with your finger where that joint happens. And again, if you position your knife right here, I can feel that I'm cutting on bone, so I'm not in the right spot. Ah, there it is. I can feel where that goes in. And then again, one cut through. And we'll separate that beautifully. So I don't have any jagged bones, etc., etc. That's my thigh. And then for my drumstick, I want to make this a tulip drum, which is a better way of presenting the drumstick. Somebody grab a marker. You ready to write?
Oh, on top of it.
On the board. Just right behind me, on my shoulder. This process of what I'm doing right now is called French. It's called, and most people in this country will call it Frenching the bone. Just write the word French. Okay? So the French get a little antsy at that ambiguous term. So they have another word, and it literally means to clean, and that's called mâchoner. And that's spelled M-A-N-C-H-O-N-N-E-R. Mâchoner. Test question. Mâchoner means to clean.
So the inside.
Notice how I cut around this drumstick, and then I'm going to cut the tip of this off. Somebody always cuts themselves tomorrow. It always happens. Like I call the ambulance. I really do. Please be careful. Your knives have got to be sharp. Like I've told you, this is like a little razor blade, which makes it so much easier. And isn't that a much more beautiful way to present the drumstick? I mean, look at that. It's crazy. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. Does she usually take like the knob?
I usually leave this little knuckle right here. Because I think it looks nice. But it's way better than that. It shows some knife skill. It shows some time in the kitchen. It stands up and gives you that 3D effect. So that's a tulip drum. So we've done the thigh, we've done the tulip drum, and now I want to do the tunneled leg. And a tunneled leg means that what I want to do is I want to leave the thigh and the drumstick still attached to each other, but I want to take the bone out. I'm going to leave the skin exactly like it is. So I'm going to make a tunnel and take the bones out. So the first thing you do is you take your knife and you slice right on top of the thigh bone. And you just kind of pull the meat around that until you see that bone exposed. See that? The thigh bone. I'm going to do the same thing with the leg bone. I'm just going to tilt my angle this way because I have this kind of a V angle. This is where, you guys, a sharp knife is beyond needed. So either work on your knives or get a knife. So now you see the drumstick bone and the thigh bone, okay? So the first thing I do next is slide my knife underneath that bone and cut right down to the edge to separate. And then I switch it around, slide my knife under the bone on this side, and cut right down to the edge. So now what I have is I'm almost removing this bone, and I'm going to use my knife and I'm going to kind of scrape this meat off of here. And as soon as I get this done, I'm going to give you an application or why you would do this. Like, what's the purpose of this? We're not going to use this per se tomorrow, but you could use it tomorrow. I have that meat that's kind of almost coming off of there, and I grab these two and I use those as kind of a handle. And then I just start cutting around this knuckle. And start turning this around until it eventually will sort of fall off. You can find boneless chicken thighs, but probably cannot find a boneless chicken leg. But if you know anything about chicken, which is what we just talked about, full of flavor. So there's the bone out of here, and look at this situation. I have that beautiful thigh and the drumstick still attached by the skin, and then what I can do is I can pound this out and make a beautiful stuffing out of breadcrumbs and dried cherries and toasted pine nuts and herbs, and layer it in here and then roll it up and roast it. And how beautiful is that? It's beautiful, right?
Look it out, Shane. Look it out.
The thigh meat has all that flavor. I mean, look how easy that was. Just take the, I mean, I got the whole bone out of it.
Yep.
So that is your tunneled leg. Okay? Next, we're going to tackle the breasts.
Yeah.
So, remember, this bone that goes right down the middle, we have the sternum and the what? Keel. Uh-huh. And what is that V-shaped bone that's right down here?
That's the thing that makes them fly.
Keel bone, right?
No, this is the keel bone that makes them fly. This is the
deltoid?
what do you let dry out and then you pull on it?
The wishbone.
The wishbone is right down here. Okay? So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to cut right down the center of this breast. And I feel that the keel bone and the sternum, based upon where I cut it, I feel that it's on this side. So I'm going to go after this breast on this side first. And I'm going to angle my knife this way because the carcass runs like this. So rather than just cutting straight down, I'm going to angle my knife this way. And I'm going to travel right along that wishbone, which is sitting right here. So I'm going to angle like this, right along the carcass. Then I'm getting to this point where I now have where this wing joint attaches. So I'm going to look for that joint right here, and I can already see exactly where it is, and look. It just comes right off. So I'm separating it. I'm not slicing, cutting through the carcass. I'm just separating it. Same thing on the other side. I'm going to take that sternum and the keel bone, and I'm going to cut on this side of it. So again, right here, I see where that wing joint attaches. And then knowing exactly where that happens, look, one cut, okay? So you can see my carcass, there's not much on here. It's pretty clean. That's important. This part right here is the keel bone, that dark, that's a bone. This piece of cartilage is the keel, and that's what anchors it to fly. So we're going to save these. The wishbone is down here. I just broke it. There's one part of it. It runs like a V right down there. So we're going to save these carcasses because we're going to make some chicken stock tomorrow. So I want to see your carcass. Now, let's make these breasts look like what we want them to. I have this long string of skin, so I'm just going to trim that up, make it look all nice. The airline breast, both of these still have the wing attached, and there are actually three parts of the wing. There is the drumette, the flat, and the tip. Drumette, flat, tip. And the airline breast has the drumette still attached to the breast. So I'm going to cut this right here between the drumette and the flat, and I'm going to break that bone till again I can see exactly where to pull my knife and run it through one time. So then I have this breast that I'm going to mâchonner. I'm going to clean this so that it looks really nice and much more presentable.
I guess it looks awesome when it's cooked.
Oh, it's beautiful. So, the other thing about these two breasts is if you cut them off of the carcass correctly, you have the tenderloin, which is sitting right here. And that tenderloin, the the airline breasts were in a grill, and it always falls off on the grill. So I always pulled them off before. See this one right here? Look. It just pulls right up. That's your tenderloin. Cooks faster, it falls apart. So you see how nice that looks.
That is the airline.
This is the airline breast. There's a couple of theories of why you call this, or why we call this, the airline. First of all, in the heyday of flight travel, people used to get dressed up to get on a plane. When I was a kid, we did a lot of traveling. We lived in India for a year. So my family did a lot of traveling, and my mother would always make me put a tie and a coat on to sit on the frickin' plane. Nowadays, people get on with their sweatpants and flip-flops and, you know, pajamas, whatever. But at this, you know, it used to be that when you got on a plane and it was part of this whole experience, you actually got a meal. And it was some of the best food that you could get. Now, you have to pay $7 for a bag of Fritos on a plane. But in the time when this was part of this experience, you got beautiful cuisine that, I mean, you know, was prepared by chefs. That's one theory. The other theory is it's called the airline because it has part of the wing attached to it, like an airplane would. So you can pick your theory, but that is the airline breast. And it's really, when you cook that, it's not beautiful. I mean, it provides this natural height, and plus, the drumette of the wing is about as good as any part of the whole animal. I mean, that's some good eating right there.
Lufthansa.
Lufthansa.
I actually